What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and the recent, I guess you could just say, hot button topic out there in theme parks is kind of centering around Universal, not only with Epic Universe, but what may be coming in the very near future. We do know Rip Ride Rocket is getting a replacement, and then Mark Woodbury has been indicating that there are things coming, multiple things coming to not just Epic, but the existing Universal parks. Plus, you just had the recent announcement that Universal is going to be doing construction in the Lost Continent, apparently to prepare that land for something, which I'm not saying I buy that as the reason, but there is something going on there. So there's lots of things moving at Universal. And in a recent theme park and live stream, we got on the discussion about the potential Epic Universe expansions as well as the ones in Universal Studios and which parks need it more. Is it Islands of Adventure? Is it the studio side? And what could be coming with some theories, some rumors out there. Just a really good discussions on the topic. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Mark Woodbury also, they asked him a question about Epic expansion, which he did. This is kind of interesting. So he didn't give like direct answers, but he gave if you know what to read between the lines, this part is very interesting. So he says, if you fly over Epic or you look at Google Earth, you'll see how we plan the park, and you'll see greenfield space between the existing worlds, and that is strategically positioned to give us flexibility to expand the world or create a new world. And so that's how we look at it. I don't really have anything to announce specifically as attractions, but I can tell you that there are multiple attractions in the works, not just at Epic. So I read that as there's multiple at Epic, but also multiple ones coming to these existing parks. But when you have the three parks, mind you, he didn't say Volcano Bay because there's three parks. The cadence of product delivery across the resort to continue to drive the resort is really a key part of our strategy moving forward. We have a clear line of sight into how far we can take this. It's considerable, and we have a pretty sophisticated and well thought out, thorough, long range plan that takes us out another decade in terms of product offerings, not just in Orlando, but around the world. He says cadence of delivery. Now, what I think he's referring to, they've said before they would like to see a new attraction come open every year. I believe that's the cadence he's talking about in terms of the next decade or longer, seeing a new attraction pop up at Universal every single year.
No, that's great. And here's the thing. I think, and I'm sure it's in the plan. I think they really need to take a hard look at IOA because there's a lot of stuff in that park. Like for example, Toon Lagoon. None of those IPs are really relevant. Popeye and Betty
Yeah.
Boop and all that. I mean, it's cool, it's okay, but like, I mean, Betty Boop. When I see Betty Boop, I think of her as like the merch on Hollywood Boulevard out here in LA. It's not really like it's kind of like that nichey kind of thing. You buy like an off-brand Betty Boop shirt, but that park though, between Toon Lagoon, I would even say the Marvel Land, to be honest. I know a lot of fans will disagree with me. And
They'll
obviously
never
the
get rid
Lost
of Marvel until Disney pays them. But I know
until
what you're
Disney
saying,
pays.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have to pay big time for that. And then the Lost Continent, right? There's a lot you can do with IOA. It's ripe for a major reimagining, so to speak. I know Slimer, you were there with the Italiano, like a year ago or something, and you were saying the same thing, kind of like it kind of needs it, right? I mean, so I hope Woodbury's really looking at IOA, going, okay, we got a lot of areas here that could use some work. Let's really invest in this park. I think they should.
I think both. I mean, I think studios will get a lot of love because I think studios need some help in terms of you had Velocicoaster and Hagrid's open in IOA. And I do think, like, I agree with everything you're saying. Toon Lagoon has been outdated since it opened, essentially.
That's true.
But now I talked about on a video that they need to replace it. I got a lot of pushback because people love those water rides. But I think you could keep those water rides, refurb them, and then theme it to something different because people do like those rides, especially in the summertime.
And I think that's smart because from experiencing Epic Universe, it's a great park. It's like a brand new toy, but it definitely has potential for growth, and it definitely needs growth because you never want a park to all feel completed, especially a brand new one right out the gate, and it's they want to be able to keep it fresh, keep it lively, you keep it up, but at the same time you you can't let the other parks fall to the wayside as well because when even before Epic opened, when Slammer and I went to IOA, it's pretty bad. So now when you compare IOA with that brand new park of Epic, it even looks even more run down. Actually, I dare I say it, I actually think the studio is in a much better condition than IOA.
Yeah, George and I basically walked out of Islands Adventure. We're just like, this park seems really uninvested in. Like they just have let it go. I mean, other than the Harry Potter stuff, all of it seemingly hasn't been updated since like the early 2000s.
The challenge you have there is they're not going to do anything with Marvel unless Disney just pays them. I think they'll just keep that out of Disney's hands, so that likely will just stay. I think there's a lot of errors. I've heard rumors that Lost Continent that they may extend the Wizarding World just to take up the Lost Continent is what I've been.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing I want to bring up to you guys. Do you think Universal has sort of missed their window of opportunity though with trying to sell to Disney the Marvel rights? Because Marvel as a brand right now is kind of dwindling. If they would have seriously sat down with Disney 4 or 5 years ago, they probably would have got more.
I mean, I think that's undoubtedly true that they would have got more there. I would be interested to know behind the scenes if there's how far discussions have ever gotten on the topic. That would be interesting.
And I think also too, what saves Universal with Marvel for right now is their interpretation of it in the parks is more based off of the cartoon comics.
Yep.
And I feel like with the comics, it's a lot more.
It's like timeless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like, and especially with a ride like Spider-Man, just, even though I feel like, because actually Slimer and I went on that too, and we came off the ride and we're like, okay, it's not like the hype that it used to be. Which actually, believe it or not, we actually enjoyed Jimmy Fallon a little bit more than Spider-Man.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
But that's insane to me. That's insane.
I hate Jimmy Fallon's. I hate that ride with such a burning passion. God. First time I went on that thing, I was like, this sucks.
And our good friend Lucas in Disney, he actually has an interesting comment here. He said, Jared, Wallen Ballin said he had insider info that Lost Continent was possibly being replaced with One Piece. So that's what Wallen Ballin is saying. Now,
I can tell you, I've had some conversation with Wallen, just DMing here and there. He does seem to know some people that I wouldn't be shocked. That would be a swing for sure if they did that. And we've talked about many times. I do think Universal is going to look at doing anime. I would say Lost Continent is a smaller land, so if you were going to take a risk, that would be the land to do it. You think you're talking 8 acres, maybe? I can't remember how big Lost Continent is, but it's not as big as the other lands that you have in that park. That would be very interesting.
It would be interesting. I mean, we've heard that. We've heard Zelda was being looked at. Now, for Zelda, for me personally, I don't think you go the cartoony look with Zelda. I would like to see freaking huge. I want to see like Wizarding World, Galaxy's Edge, Hyrule. I want this thing to be massive because it's such an epic story. You know what I'm saying?
It seems from what I've heard that Zelda will be going over to Epic. That's the latest I've heard about it. And funny enough, I had heard that from some people. Wallen actually said the same thing. He had heard the same thing. So that could change, of course, but that's the latest I had heard about that.
At first, I was against the idea of consolidating all the Nintendo IP into just one park because then what it does is it takes away the opportunity for guests to experience Nintendo by having to purchase a ticket for every single one of your parks. So from like a business strategy perspective, I've never agreed with the consolidation. But now that Universal Studios is exploring with manga and it's a whole new ballgame now for me because I feel like in a lot of ways, manga as it grows more and more into the United States and pop culture and subculture, which it's already massive. It's bigger than superheroes. That's how big it is. It's just that
it really is.
What I feel like is the comic book companies and honestly Disney and Warner Brothers. They like to make it seem like manga is not as big, but in reality it is because they don't want the comic book
sales. They've been dominating for like 5 years plus.
Yeah, like 4x. I mean, way more. It's like 75% of all graphic novel and comic book sales.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with this just getting bigger and bigger, I think they're probably looking at Nintendo going, You may not be the latest and the greatest and the hottest anymore. You're still hot, but they might be looking at the future, and manga might be the future, whereas Nintendo is today.
I think it's both. I think Nintendo's also into the future. I think you could have both. I think you can make it work. Now, Zelda going into Epic, if that happens, does make sense to me, because I do know their worry about Zelda was it a big enough appeal outside? Like, it's kind of niche. I mean, it has a lot of sales. I'm not saying it doesn't, but they were concerned about its appeal to pull people in specifically just for Zelda. But if you tuck it into Super Nintendo world, then it becomes a part of the the encompassing thing, and then it becomes another part they check out. So that I think that's why they would do that. It would be curious if I've heard the Pokemon stuff isn't as solid as it once was about going into Simpsons area, because Pokemon's owned by like 4 or 5 different companies.
Yeah.
Which could get kind of messy. So if now maybe, I don't know, that'd be curious if they end up putting Nintendo in the other parks, which I think you should. Like the Wizarding World stuff, but I don't know if they will.
Actually, I didn't know this. This is actually some pretty interesting information in regards to Nintendo. And we're just talking about how the Nintendo brand is like rock solid and hot, and has been for generations. But he's saying here, some of the anime and game haters don't realize that Nintendo products and foods in Epic Universe revenue surpassed Wizarding products this year.
Oh,
100%. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Nintendo is... I've had this argument on my channel with people. They were like, "Oh, Nintendo." I'm like, "You don't understand how big Nintendo is. Like, Nintendo is insanely. I mean, look, the Nintendo Switch 2 came out. People were pissed off about the pricing of that. I think at this point, it's the best-selling console in that time frame ever. So, I mean, it has its fan base. It appeals to a broad audience, kids, people our age. Like, it is, and it has staying power. Like Wizarding World, I do wonder. I think a lot of it could depend on how this new show goes, but you do wonder about the longevity of it in, say, 20 years or so. Maybe it ages out a little bit.
But as far as with Harry Potter, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can actually either help the franchise by keep it relevant, or it actually can hurt it with the new series, because if the new series ends up dominating of what the films were, then everything that they put into these parks of the films...
Well, one thing I do want to say actually with Epic is, and I've said the same thing about California Adventure and just about any new park, in that the hardest part of these new parks is getting the new park built in the first place. So Epic isn't going to be a perfect park out the gate. It's not, no park really is. But the hardest part for Epic was getting the infrastructure around the park built, the hotel, getting it all situated. Now that they have the park there and settled, they can go in there and start to plus it. But the first thing they should do, we talked about this, it's a very hot park. They really need to address that. I think first and foremost, that's a quick, easy fix kind of thing, to add some more awnings, some more trees. I think that's something they should really go in there. But yeah, now that the park's built, you can go in there and plus the heck out of it.
All right, well, I hope everybody enjoyed that discussion. That was, again, on a theme park and live stream. That is when I have the Orange Grove 55 crew, also George the Italiano and Slimer come on, and we discuss theme parks and entertainment, all sorts of things. So if you want to check those out in the future, we do those about at least every other week, usually on a Tuesday, but I give some indication ahead of time when we do those. But it's always a good time, and some really good discussion there, and I like getting the insights from different perspectives on theme parks and what may be coming. So I think it's fun to talk about, and let us know in the comments what you think, because I'm really curious what you guys have to say about what we discussed and what might be coming to the Universal Parks. But either way, that's going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage around here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And again, let us know in the comments, what do you think may be coming to Epic Universe, Universal Studios, and Islands of Adventure? And out of all the Universal parks, which park do you think needs an expansion first? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.